was less than 50 years ago that Mao Zedong set out to transform China by conquering nature. Millions were mobilized in a war against nature that was supposed to create prosperity, but instead left a trail of destruction. This is one of the great untold stories of the last century. Now, in the towns and villages along the Yangtze River in southern China, an environmental movement is born. Tonight we reveal the inside story as farmers and activists set out to stop a dam and save a valley, and end up launching a green movement.
And that is just a little glimpse of Waking the Green Tiger that will be airing on CBC very soon as part of The Nature of Things. A fascinating look into the growing environmental movement within China. We are very proud to be joined by the director, Gary Marcuse, of Waking the Green Tiger.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good.
Nice to see you.
So tell us about the green movement and what the documentary focuses on.
Well, you know, originally I went to China having read about what happened during the Maoist period, when Mao was very determined to conquer nature, you know, in the name of progress. Millions of people were organized to get involved in these campaigns to fill in rivers and lakes and stamp out sparrows and all these kind of mass efforts to over about a 20-year period. I'd heard about that. And I read a little bit about a kind of a new green awareness that was taking place and some green efforts that were being made to add biomass generators and, you know, you cut down on cutting down trees, things like that. So I went over to China to try and find out what was happening. And when I arrived there, I started to meet all of, like half of the key environmental activists in China. There's a kind of a small group of about a dozen who've become real leaders. And they pointed me to this story that happened on the upper Yangtze River, starting about 5, 6 years ago. And it took about 6 or 7 years ago, but by the end of it, a green movement had been established in China that brought together farmers and activists to fight against a dam, something never happened before.
Something that I think most people in the West associate with China, this idea of activism, because
it came about exactly because there was a certain bill was passed that gave people a new set of rights. It was actually an Environmental Impact Assessment Act that was passed in China. Who would thought they had one given the state of the environment in China? But the fact is, in China, they recognize they have a huge problem.
Yeah, things are going wrong.
So much about the air pollution, the water pollution, but they were trying to get people more involved, actually, in protecting the environment. So inside the government, there are actually forces that are supporting an environmental movement. And one of them, who's a key character who becomes a portrait in this film.
How amazing is this? That, you know, you have this opportunity to have this person within the Chinese government that's really creating a lot of these reforms.
And the particular reform that he started in 2004 was a bill that would assess big projects like dams about the environmental impact, which they didn't used to do. They just built them.
They just built them.
Yeah. And it had a little law written into it that gave people the right to participate. And the environmental activists jumped on this. They all went through this.
Didn't say how they were participating, just they could participate.
They had a right to information to contribute.
The dam itself and why it was going to affect these villagers. Because, I mean, there's a lot of things you don't think about. It's just a dam, but they've done it time and time again in China.
They've built a lot of huge dams in China. There's 22,000 big dams, and they were just about to build another 24 of them in this little province in southwestern China. One of the dams, like second really only in size of the reservoir to the big Three Gorges Dam that you've heard about, was going to flood a river valley that was 265 kilometers long in an area of China way up in the mountains near the Tibetan highlands. And so this was going to force about 100,000 people to move. You know,
unbelievable.
Millions of people have been moved in the past.
But I was going to say, within the context of China, kind of small change.
It's kind of small, but a very big one. And this was also the breadbasket for this whole region of China. And the farmers didn't want to move. And they've discovered, talking to activists, that they had the right to kind of speak up and get organized and kind of give their opinion about this, which had never happened before. And so they started getting information, and the more information they got, the more they were against the dam. You know, up until then, many people have been told, hey, build a dam, you'll be rich, you'll be happy.
And one of the most amazing things about the documentary that was captivating, as you said off the top, everybody's heard and read about the Maoist period and some of the things, the footage that you managed to get had never been seen outside of China before?
Most of it has never been seen outside of China.
It's amazing.
There's one scene where 300,000 people from a city the size of Vancouver were involved in filling in the end of a beautiful lake to try and turn it into farmland. And ecologically, it was a disaster. It almost killed the lake. lake. We found in an archive, in a library, in a local television station, a propaganda film that had been made sort of celebrating this great effort by the people to destroy the lake. And so that footage had never really come out of China before. And we found footage from these campaigns where millions of people were organized for years to try and exterminate sparrows. You see a little bit of that footage.
Conquering nature.
When you say we, talk about the we, because you had a marvelous
I was not alone.
Filmmaker within China as well that's quite well known.
I took a cameraman with me, but everybody else I worked with was Chinese. And we worked really closely with Chinese activists and filmmakers. And one woman named Sheila Hong, who was turned into a main character, was actually just working with me, doing some general research and studies. I discovered that she had made a little film about what happened to farmers who were moved to make way for the dam. And that film had been carried all through the valleys and used to organize resistance. Because what that film showed was
the bad side to
being moved for a dam.
Everyone's going to be wealthy, everything else. How fascinating, I mean, because this obviously talks about environmentalism, but a huge part of environmentalism is humanism. Being a person, being a member of this world and
being allowed to express your views on things. I mean, that was the big difference from the Maoist period. Nobody could really go against it. Because if you went against Mao's plans, you were anti-socialist, you were against the state, you were kind of a traitor.
Bad things were going to happen.
So everybody kind of went along with it. But when I went in, we interviewed people who had taken part in these big campaigns, and now they were able to tell us how they really felt at the time, and many of them were ecologists who thought, you know, killing a lake's not a good idea, but they couldn't say anything then. When they finally got the right to participate, boy, they're really standing up now.
And are we seeing things change from your perspective on how people are looking at the green movement in China?
Well, I think for anybody outside China, the fact that there is a green movement is extraordinarily compelling, and it's a relief. You know, it's a really exciting kind of development, because we tend to think that China having a monolithic government and a subservient people, and but that's a very old formula. People are now expressing their rights, and so they're getting very active. And so, yes, this green movement actually is going to have wider implications, because when people start to exercise their rights in one area, it leads them to want to exercise their rights in another area.
Absolutely.
And the green legislation was very transparent. It provided a place for democratic participation. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's a model for how you could increase participation in society generally. And so green democracy can lead to more democracy. So it's a very interesting story, very exciting to kind of get a hold of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We didn't even mention that it's narrated by David Suzuki, of course.
It is.
The Suze, I love that.
The Suze, you can see Waking the Green Tiger. It's going to be airing on The Nature of Things Thursday, December 1st, and it's going to be re-airing on Sunday on News World, so check your local listings.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to CBC's website as well and go through there and just put in Waking the Green Tiger and you'll find all the air dates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Great film.